While investors in big markets like Nashville, Tampa, and Austin are seeing shrinking returns, there's one city that's quietly gaining their attention. And here in 2025, it's becoming one of the most attractive real estate markets for cash flow and long-term growth. Let's break down exactly why. My name is Evan. I'm a local Cincinnati realtor and I work with buyers and investors from all over the country. And today, I'll walk you through why more people are shifting their money into the greater Cincinnati real estate market right now and what makes this area so unique. All right, so before we get into the first reason why so many people are shifting their money towards Cincinnati, let's first look at all the reasons we're gonna cover today, and then we'll get started with number one. We're gonna be covering everything from the price of homes to the cash flow opportunity to the appreciation to the job market and the taxes, so you'll know if Cincinnati is the right place to invest for you. All right, with all that out of the way, let's get started with number one, and that is gonna be the affordability and entry price. Here in Cincinnati, you can still find single family homes and multifamily homes for under 300,000, which is almost unheard of in most major US cities right now. In Hamilton County, where Cincinnati is located, the median price of a sold home so far this year is about $320,000, with many coming in under that $300,000 mark. So the opportunity is great for even a first-time investor who might be looking to have a cheaper down payment or not have as much money invested. This means that it's a lot easier to diversify your portfolio with different types of properties or to scale your portfolio quicker because you're gonna have a smaller down payment than you would in other markets. The next great thing about the Cincinnati market right now is the strong demand. You have areas like Norwood and Evanston and Clifton where they're home to the University of Cincinnati and Xavier University, so students there are constantly looking for housing. In fact, the University of Cincinnati has been seeing record enrollment numbers year over year for the last few years, and they've been doing their best to build dorms for their students, but there's still not enough. So that's why we are seeing historically low vacancy rates over the past few years in those areas. This also means that you're gonna have more stable income, and in a lot of cases, you might have the opportunity to increase the rent each year if you so choose, as the demand is just so high in those areas right now. And that flows perfectly into number three, which is the job market and the economic growth that Cincinnati has been seeing. Cincinnati is home to major employers like Procter and Gamble, Kroger, Great American, just to name a few. And on top of that, there are huge developments happening throughout the city right now. You have the renovation of the Duke Energy Convention Center, and also on the west end, you have the mixed use development happening right in front of TQL Stadium that in a few years will be home to commercial and residential properties. So that's a huge opportunity for jobs and also economic growth in the city. If you're an investor, then you know everything comes down to cash flow. You don't want to gamble on an area appreciating, although that is nice, but you want to be sure that the numbers make sense even from day one. And Cincinnati is an area where you can cash flow from day one, even after financing. Now look, I'm not saying that every single property that you find listed is just gonna cash flow like $1,000+ a month and it's all sunshine and rainbows. Of course, there's some work to be done, right? And that's just like any market. But I know from firsthand experience, there are plenty of opportunities out there if you're patient and if you have your criteria set. You can certainly find homes and properties that cash flow from day one, and that's only going to increase on top of the appreciation gains you'll see years down the line. And speaking of appreciation, there's tons of opportunity to force appreciation in areas like over the Rhine and Walnut Hills even. We are seeing those areas be revitalized, and so there's been already some big investors that have come in and built some commercial buildings and residential space, but the opportunity is certainly still there for some of these older buildings to be revitalized, to bring economic growth into those neighborhoods throughout the city. And so not only are you creating growth for the city itself, but you also have an opportunity to force appreciation and of course, cash flow as well. And I don't want to forget about Northern Kentucky either. I mentioned Over the Rhine and Walnut Hills, and there's others, but of course, there's still opportunity to do so on the Northern Kentucky side in Covington and Newport and places that are right on the river. Those are areas that have a unique opportunity to get ahead of the curve before too much development happens in those areas and rents start to come down a little bit. And as someone who has a previous background in property management, I'm very familiar with the landlord laws. And compared to a lot of other states, especially some of these coastal states like California, for example, Ohio has pretty fair landlord laws. And what this means for you as a landlord or a property manager is that it is going to be easier to keep your properties well maintained. And if an issue does arise where you might have to get a tenant out if there's a bad situation, the process is pretty streamlined. It's a pretty straightforward process. Of course, you have to follow the policies and the laws regarding those 3-day notices and 30-day notices, but it's a pretty straightforward process. And for the most part, it is pretty easy and streamlined. And the awesome thing about Cincinnati as well is because it's home to 52 different neighborhoods, and then even if you want to branch out of Hamilton County and go into Warren County and Butler County and places like Milford and Mason, there's so many opportunities for different investment strategies depending on what you're looking for. There's people who are only invested in single family, and I've seen that work, especially around these universities where students want 5-6 bedroom homes where they can all live in there together. Of course, your multifamily is going to work, duplexes, triplexes, even bigger commercial buildings that might have 10, 15, 20 plus units. And then of course, there's some investors in this area who are doing the BRRRR strategy, which if you've been looking into investing for a little bit or you are an investor, I'm sure you know about that strategy. And so there's a little bit of something for everyone. Depending on the neighborhood, certain strategies might work better, but if you have questions about that and you're thinking about the Cincinnati area, I'd love to talk to you and I can kind of help you game plan and strategize for that. As always, my information is down in the description if you do want to talk about that. But real quick, before I go, I wanted to give a real example. Now, I don't want to out any of my clients and like their numbers and what we've been working on and stuff like that, but I'll give an example of a property that I came across that we didn't go after necessarily, but the numbers were definitely there for an investor to make a healthy profit. And there was a property near the University of Cincinnati, so strong demand again with student housing there. And the rents right now for that home were at $4,500, but they're already pre-leasing it for over $5,000 a month next year. And that is the kind of rents that we are seeing in Cincinnati in certain areas. We're talking about a single family home that is bringing in over $50,000 in gross rents. Now, of course, you have to factor in maintenance and vacancy rates, management if you choose not to manage on your own. There's going to be overall cost of turning the home if those students move out or students or anyone moves out. Of course, there's going to be costs associated, but their opportunity here in Cincinnati is amazing right now. Again, I mentioned it, but there's so many different strategies that can and do work in Cincinnati. Of course, no market is going to be perfect, right? There's always going to be cons. There's going to be homes that need a lot of work. There's going to be areas where certain investors might want to stay away from, other areas where maybe you enjoy the area, but the numbers don't make sense for what properties are selling for. There's always going to be pros and cons to every market. However, if you have any questions, whether you're a seasoned investor or somebody who's a first-time investor, you're looking to get that first property under your belt and in your portfolio, I'd love to help you out. There's no strings attached, just to ask questions and we can chat about it. I'm kind of a nerd when it comes to real estate and especially real estate investing, so I would love to talk with you. All of my information will be in the description. If you have any questions whatsoever, you can call, email, text, book a call, whatever's easiest for you. Thank you so much for watching, and as always, until next time.